Hello, my dear English-speaking followers, friends, clients, astrology lovers, of course. Here is Olga Vasilchuk from very sunny Costa Rica, and I would like to present you today the astrological analysis of the first week of April. I will talk today about the transit planetary aspects of the week from April 2 until April 8, 2018. First of all, I would like to wish to all Catholic Christians Happy Easter. I would like sincerely from the bottom of my heart to wish you peace, love, health, prosperity, faith and hope to you personally and to all your family, people that are dear to your friends. So I wish you all the best and Happy Easter. Let's get back. Let's talk about astrology, about the first week of April. So before to get closer to the details of the first week, I would like to mention general things about the month. Okay, the month of April will be ambivalent. On one hand, we can say that it will be easy from this point of view that during this period we will not face major contrasts, transition periods, cardinal turns, because we are already in the dynamics of the development of scenarios and trends established in the recent past, having made important decisions, having started a new annual cycle of the sun. Don't forget the spring equinox on March 21st, when the sun entered the first zodiacal sign of Aries. Okay, in April we will have first of all a stellium in Aries. Sun, Mercury and Uranus will be in Aries, which will fill us with energy for the realization of new plans and of new beginnings, for new ideas of the pioneer cardinal fire sign of Aries. The focus of the focus on the energy of Aries until at least April 20th will create situations that can and will depend on our personal position and on our independent participation in these situations. The second stellium accumulates in the Earth sign of Capricorn. Mars, Saturn and Pluto will be in Capricorn. Plus, in addition to that, Venus is in the Earth sign of Taurus since March 31st. So it will contribute, the fact that we have 4 planets in Earth signs, it will contribute to the implementation of bold ideas in the practical life. In other words, April is both vigorous, energetic, and productive time in terms of results at the same time. Energy, planification, projects, and their implementation of the projects and ideas in the real concrete life. And of course, the positive astrological event of the month is the end of the retrograde phase of Mercury when it gets direct on April 15th. But well, we are now in the middle of the retrograde phase, so we have a lot of work, still a lot of work to do. So it's not a time to relax. On the contrary, it's time to focus. At the same time, the complex conflict facet of the month manifests itself through 2 harsh conjunctions of Mars and Capricorn, with Saturn during the first week of April and with Pluto in the last week of the month. We can say that the second and the third weeks will be relative respite. The month will be also marked by the beginning of the retrograde phases of the social planets, Saturn and Pluto, in the second half of the month. But of course, I will talk about these astrological events in separate videos in the close future. So let's talk about the first week of the month. The first week of April, as all its half, corresponds to the second phase or to the increasing phase of the retrograde phase of Mercury in Aries. And this second half of the phase will start after the conjunction or combustion of the Mercury by the Sun. Conjunction with the Sun, combustion by the Sun on April 1st and 2nd. By that moment, Mercury completes its previous cycle and begins its new cycle with respect to the Sun. So the middle of the retrograde phase of Mercury is the most appropriate time to summarize the implementation of previous plans, to complete old projects, to let go or to burn, Mercury, burned or combust, habits, patterns of behavior, connections, ties, contacts, means of communication and transport that are obsolete and irrelevant. The equipment, such as means of communication and of transport, can be broken these days, having no chance to be repaired. They will simply leave our lives. So on this exact conjunction of Mercury and Sun, we will see the formation, the emergence of new strategies of achievement of our objectives, new strategies of manifestations of our individuality, because the conjunction is formed in the sign of Aries, don't forget that. New programs of communications with the surrounding world will be crystallized. But if we don't control our states and our manifestations, our behavior, the deformed principle of energy, eventually of energy of Aries, can be played through destructive states, through aggression and violence. And because of that, the effectiveness, efficiency of our actions will decrease, will be reduced, yes, will be lower. So I really would like to draw your attention to this conjunction Mercury-Sun, to this beginning of a new cycle of Mercury. So these days, March 30 until April 2nd. And in addition, it corresponds to the full moon that I spoke about in the previous video. So these days, our ability to respond adequately to external stimuli, our ability to interact with the surrounding world is reduced, causing tensions and nervousness. The reason of this is the deep reboot of the mercurial systems of rational thought and those of connections, the system of connections, of communications. And at the level of real events, this can cause breakdowns of the means of communication and of transport, problems with schedules, confusion and communication errors, lack of mutual understanding with people. I will rephrase. The days close to the exact conjunction of Mercury and the Sun, the filters of the rational thought are weakened. We must therefore monitor the information and mental predispositions that we tolerate, and especially that we absorb. Information that will come from social network, from mass media. These informations, the information can be lodged in the subconsciousness, in the unconscious, because it's not protected by the control of the conscious. However, this is the perfect time to reinstall or to reset our own scenarios, beliefs, and programs. I would like to invite you to watch the separate video on the retrograde phase of Mercury in Aries that you will find in the playlist. So as I already mentioned, the first days of April, we are still in the aura of the full moon in Libra of March 31st that I spoke about in the previous predictions. So in the end of March and in the beginning of April, in unstable, fragile relationships, we could talk about separation eventually, dissolution of partnerships, of a divorce. So by the middle of the week, this tension of the full moon and especially this concentrated mental energy that we are having right now because of the conjunction Sun-Mercury will be already behind and will be, by the way, slowed down in our action by three very difficult aspects, okay? And so I would say that during the first week of April, we will face situations that require endurance, hard work, perseverance, patience, and discipline from us. This is what is required from us. March 2nd, Mars in conjunction with Saturn in Capricorn. Wow. The aspect is in the orb from March 25th until April 9th, well, I would say plus minus 4 days. The power of Mars becomes more disciplined in the sign of its exaltation, because the position of Mars in Capricorn is a very strong position, right? The positive impact of this transit is that these energies, the conjunction Mars-Saturn, favor the execution of the complex mental work. It favors the concentration of forces. It helps to concentrate the energy, to focus the energy on the achievement of, for example, a very important goal. But to reach the efficiency in the affairs, it's necessary to move slowly, carefully, and not to hurry. But nevertheless, these days will be difficult around the conjunction Mars-Saturn, when in our activities we will meet obstacles that will require an additional effort to overcome them, to overcome these obstacles. And this can certainly create a depressing emotional background, a feeling of a threat or of the lack of perspectives. At this precise moment, we can deal with rigidity, cruelty, because this is the aspect of cruelty, pressure, abuse of power, or attempts of manipulation. Now it's dangerous to clash with the superiors and bosses because we run the risk of being fired. It's necessary to observe subordination and discipline, not to try something new. It's not the time of experiments, for experience. It's better to follow familiar paths. It is also a period of increase of the rate of accidents. There is a high probability of excesses of all kinds and of terrorist attacks, because remember that we are still in the shadow, in the orb, in the light, in the energy of the full moon. So the energies are very intense. So avoid traveling to potentially dangerous locations. Avoid big crowds and mass events. Of course, we need to be careful while driving, and since Saturn is responsible for bones, there is a risk of fractures and injuries. Don't add more physical effort than usually when doing sports or during any physical work, because we have a lot of energy thanks to the full moon. But the aspect of this aspect conjunction Mars-Saturn can cause injuries, physical injuries. So Mars-Saturn conjunction. Then the next 2 days, Mercury retrograde forms square to Mars, and the next day, on the April 5th, square to Saturn. Wow, we will be really definitely slowed down. We'll be obliged to sit down and to think what we want and where we go, because these two aspects are they calm down this excitement of the full moon and conjunction Mercury, Sun and Mercury. So on the 4th of April, Mercury retrograde in the exact square with Mars in Capricorn, plus minus 3 days. The orb lasts for 1 week. Its positive impact, though, is that the aspect promotes the concentration of mental energy by allowing us to perform complex intellectual work. But its negative impact is that vulnerability and irritability are at their peak, which can set the stage for conflicts. When people perceive a common comment or a point of view, or the expression of the other person of her point of view as a provocation. During this transit, we can face criticism, and not always obligatory constructive verbal aggression, which will not allow avoiding conflicts with partners, superiors, with the law, with the police or state structures. If you drive, you will see a tendency to overspeed and to fight on the road. The probability of failure of communication systems, of breakdowns in the means of communications and of transportation also increases. Because already Mercury is retrograde, so everything slows down, problems with the transport and computers, cell phones. In addition, the aspects of square with Mars, it's a double indication of all these possible issues and problems. On April 5th, Mercury retrograde is an exact square with Saturn, and since Saturn is slower than Mars, of course, the aspect will be in the orb the entire month of April, but still having the strongest impact during the first and the last week of April. During the first half of April, when Mercury is retrograde, the aspect of square Mercury Saturn can have a negative impact on mental activity and mutual understanding. We will encounter misunderstandings in communication, delays in the realization of projects. The aspect can cause suspicion, resentment, can make people grumpy and stubborn. Saturn. Saturn is not tender. Analytical work can be complicated by our pessimism or excessive criticality. The scientific research, the development of a project can come to an impasse or to the dead end. It would be better to postpone traveling if it's possible, but if you travel, of course, please be careful while driving. The positive side of this aspect is that it helps to focus on the details and allows to get a result thanks to the effort, our conscious effort when performing mental tasks. So these were pretty heavy negative news, but I would like to end with a very positive information, actually two good news. On Saturday, April 7th, our Venus, being in the practical sign of Earth, of Taurus, is in an exact trine, 120 degrees, with the Saturn in Capricorn. Also, plus minus 4 days. The orb, we are in the orb of the aspect from April 3rd until April 11th. This transit can help to strengthen relationships with partners, with the relatives, because stability and reasonable balance, which is the opposite of confrontation, become very important for us. In business, in financial relationships and decisions, we will manifest the realistic view of things. The trine Venus Saturn fosters the development of romantic relationships with the partner having a big age difference. An old financial problem can also be solved. It's a good time to pay back a debt, to seek understanding and financial support from those who are older or who have a higher status in the social hierarchy. So this is how the week ends, and I would like to to mention additional transit. I would like to anticipate a little bit a very specific information. I'd like to remind you that we are gradually getting closer to the midpoint between the eclipses of winter 2018 and the next future eclipse of the summer of this year. I'm anticipating. You understand in a while why. The full moon of April 29th, the Sun in Taurus and the Moon in Scorpio in opposition, will form a square, or squares, to the point of the lunar eclipse of January 31st on the axis Leo Aquarius, when the Sun was in Aquarius and the Moon in Leo in opposition. You're following me, right? And of course, this full moon of April 29th will form the squares to the point of the lunar eclipses of summer, the upcoming eclipses. 2 weeks later, the new moon in Taurus on May 15th will form a square to the point of the solar eclipse in Aquarius, the conjunction of Sun and Moon in Aquarius on February 15th, and to the point of the solar eclipse in Leo of August 2018. So these 2 weeks between these two phases of the moon, which corresponds to the middle point, it's a difficult conflict time, the period of transition from the work on the themes of winter eclipses to the transition to the themes of the future summer eclipses. Why I'm talking about this now is that during the next 2 weeks we'll have a very interesting transit towards the points of the eclipses. The 1st of April, the Sun, the transit Sun, is in sextile, 60 degrees, to the point of the lunar eclipse of the 31st of January. And on the 16th of April, the transit Sun will form a sextile to the point of the solar eclipse of the 15th of February. It's logical that the transit Sun will form trines, of course, to the points of the future summer eclipses. You are still following me, I hope. So these 2 weeks between the 1st of April and the 15th of April will be a time when it will be possible to solve, or at least to soften, the conflictual and difficult situation that was caused by the eclipses of winter. You know, a situation that refers to the themes of the houses of your chart where the eclipses were projected. But in order to benefit from it, it's necessary that to make efforts on our part. This is what is expected from us. For example, to initiate contacts or to show initiative for the reconciliation or to suggest a compromise. Because the circumstances and especially the energies, this transit, the sextile of the transit sun, the sextiles towards the points of eclipses, these energies will be favorable to the constructive resolution of the questions and of the issues. So I hope this will help, because I noticed that last year this is what happened exactly. In my personal situation, the situation activated by the eclipses of winter, of the last winter and the last summer, they were improved, let's say, during this transit, sextile sun points of eclipses. Okay, so I hope that the video information will be useful. Happy Easter to all of you once again. Have a wonderful week, and I talk to you very soon, the next week. Goodbye.